What comes to your mind when I say dark fantasy? For me, one single thing has always stood out amongst so many stories, and no, it isn't Dark Souls. Berserk is just a whole different beast. The series was first serialized in 1989, and for the most part, it wanted to explore the darkest corners of the human psyche. Let's be honest, you can't go wrong with a dark, mysterious figure holding a massive sword, unless it's 2016. The reason so many people go to the gym now is probably because of Guts. For those who didn't know, the author of Berserk, Kentaro Miura, died in 2021. And when I say this man left a legacy, that's barely scratching the surface. With Artists for Parents, there was little doubt in anyone's mind that Kentaro would seek his own way in the art world. To Kentaro, the idea that dark and generalized fantasy were not two separate genres. Fantasy as a whole can simply just be darker when you embed more mature themes. You can see all of this within his illustrations. The art of Berserk is beyond anything I would have ever expected. I think the most respected part about what Kentaro did throughout the series is just how consistent he was. A lot of the time you get authors whose work drastically decreases over time, whether that be because they're comfortable with the money, or they're just completely burnt out by how much is required of them. Hieronymus Bosch, MC Escher, Gustave Doré, all of these painters were huge inspirations to Kentaro. This extreme attention to detail in his work is not just for show. The depth in his work is derived from the religious undertones explored by his predecessors, his influences. You have this massive array of biblical imagery, experimentalism, romanticism, all in order to express the themes which Kentaro presents in his story. As you can see, Kentaro was as talented as they come, if not more so. We are really lucky that Kentaro's work was passed on to his close friend Koji Mori, who is aware of the ending of Berserk, which means it is continuing in accordance with the original plan. Berserk is unapologetically violent and distressing, so the title is fairly accurate. In terms of narrative, this series was inspired by a plethora of works. I don't doubt that Kentaro watched probably hundreds of different iterations of fantasy in his lifetime. Noticeably, the story derived from Conan the Barbarian, Fist of the North Star of course, and there's even some elements of Mad Max in all of this. It's pretty fun watching Berserk and seeing all of its different influences, and you also of course have these two. To paint a picture of those who aren't completely familiar with the series, the story draws us into this chaotic medieval world, and we are presented with multifaceted, morally ambiguous characters. Guts is the protagonist, he is the anti-hero of the story. We first perceive him to be some kind of wandering mercenary, and through the blatant hardship and suffering Guts goes through, the story does a full 180 and goes down into a dark, depressing rabbit hole. We do love those. And this is full of conflicting ideals and flashbacks and a lot of fighting. Half the time Guts is fighting with himself. And this is where we start to grasp the mystery of this depraved world that Guts has to traverse. With a lot of stories, you have a protagonist who has a dream, who has ambition, I want to be king of the pirates. From the get-go, Guts is a completely different type of character. He doesn't seek happiness in the conventional way we're used to. He doesn't seek any kind of dream. He doesn't even derive pleasure from a victory. Off the bat, a lot of people would consider Guts to be a very nihilistic character, which is an entirely fair assumption. It's clear to see that Guts does not derive pleasure from any conventional means. He isn't out here to seek materialistic wealth. Instead, his reason for existing is purely for that alone: to exist. To survive. Through the pain he suffers, through the trials he faces, that alone is his purpose to exist. This ideology seems to stick with him from early doors until way later in the series, regardless of the adversary. And speaking of adversaries, Griffith. Berserk has a lot of amazing villains, but let's face it, if we were to talk about them all, we'd be here for a very long time. Let's keep this short and sweet. Griffith is just amazing. In the worst way, obviously. Guts' relationship to Griffith is so unique in its execution. Guts is essentially forced into the Band of the Hawk, and he uses it as a means to an end, all before getting wrapped up in Griffith's philosophy. The manipulation is there for everyone to see. This happened to me. You kind of end up hating yourself as a reader, because I started to really like Griffith as a character, and then I started to dislike him as a person, but I still continue to like him as a character. He's really good. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say he's probably one of the best antagonists ever written in fiction. From his elegant design, everyone gets the contrast from him and Guts, who is obviously way more rugged. Guts is this tired, worn individual, and then you have Griffith, who essentially has a god complex. We start off with the Black Swordsman arc, and this outlines the really well-paced conquest of Griffith's rise to power. And ultimately, this turns into a descent into darkness. This is also the arc being animated by Studio Eclipse, which is essentially breathing life back into the fandom. What I think is really beautiful about the characters in this series is they all have an essence of vulnerability. Everyone is flawed in their own way and burdened with their own demons, sometimes literally. But this vulnerability only allows for the willpower of each character to stand out. The ability to sacrifice, the ability to push forward, regardless of how impossible the world might seem. And I think this is an element of the story which can resonate with so many people. Even the fights in the OG series is brilliant. Yeah, the sound design can be improved and it's a little bit clunky, but the choreography is really well made. And if you want a more polished, tighter version of this, the movies are available, and I personally think they're pretty good. Shout out to Flexicist, who is the guy who got me into them. The symbolism in this series, the connotative imagery, is something that really stood out to me as a filmmaker, and this is all strengthened by the environment, by the visuals. When writing a story, it's always important to outline the themes and messages you want to develop on. The wolf and the hawk, the constant use of skulls resembling death, the constant theme of fate and existentialism, and all of this is carried out not just in the visuals but in the actions of the characters. Even in the dialogue, some of the writing in this show is just poetry. The world building alone is ripe with elements derived from mythology and even real life events. Dark fantasy is a vessel which can allow the author to implement real life issues into their creations. It only becomes more powerful when the creation, the story itself, has no limitation apart from the author's imagination. How Kentaro has visualized perseverance and, in a way, complete and utter hopelessness just shines a light on how well this story is written, and it's why I love it so much. It's just so raw. It is a blessing that this story is continuing, because I think that's what Kentaro would have absolutely wanted. If you haven't read or watched Berserk, I think it's only going to become more and more relevant as time goes on. It is a timeless story, and I think there's no better time to watch it than now. The story has transcended. The message Kentaro wanted to push has genuinely connected to people on a personal level. And maybe this is the essence of dark fantasy. This is the true purpose of Berserk. When there is darkness, there is also light. Just a warning though, if you do watch this show or read it and become a fan, I can't promise that you won't want to buy a £300 Black Blade and swing it with one arm. Anyways, feel free to subscribe and take care.